So now that you've completed your task 1, this is your task 2. This is a group information booklet. So once again, you will have to work with a number of other individuals to make sure you can pass this section of the assignment. You'll find that there is a C1, a C2, a C3, and the C4 is your referencing. The vocational scenario we will start with, which is over here, which sets the scene. You and the team have had very positive feedback about the presentation. As a result, the team is finding itself receiving a lot of inquiries for support from colleagues about how to best communicate with clients, service users, based on their individual needs. It is decided that it would be much more time effective to create an information booklet to hand out than answer each question in person. In your group, you will need to create an information booklet that describes and explains how to communicate to meet the needs of others. Within this, you will need to describe how to ensure the security of data when accessing and storing records as well as sharing information. Furthermore, you will need to explain how to maintain records. So if we start with the C1 2.2 and the 2.5, it says that you will need to describe the communication and language needs of the clients as well as their preferences. Furthermore, you will need to ensure that you explain how to communicate to meet these needs. Your information must focus on the effective communication to show a range of language needs that individuals may have, a range of preferences that individuals may have, and how to communicate to meet the needs of others. Now, to be able to make sure that you can do this, you have to first describe these communication and language needs and preferences. So, as I said previously, speech and language services is your 1 point, interpreting service is another point, translation service is another point, and so on. So the semicolons tells you where the point ends, for example. And it also says that you will need to explain how to communicate to meet these needs. So usually, if there are any of these issues going on here, the additional support is how you deal with them. So for example, speech and language therapists are 1 point, translation and interpretation services are another point, which may support the communication and language needs and preferences. So let's take a look at the support material. For this group information booklet, I would suggest that you start over here, which looks at describing the communication and language needs and preferences of the individual. Now, when you're looking at that, you look at the person 1, for example, looks at 3 communication and language needs and preferences and provides supporting references for each of them. Now, if if 4 individuals all provide 3 each, you will be able to cover most, if not all, of the material that is here. So this means you have to be able to describe the communication and the need that is there for the individual, or the preference that is there for the individual, with references to support what you're saying. Now, when you're looking at the second part of that, which is the part 2 aspect, it says explain how to communicate to meet those needs. So what I suggest is each individual looks at 1 additional support that has been named over here. For example, speech and language therapist might be done with by person 1, language and interpretation services might be by 2, and so on. So each of the 4 individuals provides 1 additional support aspect where you are able to explain how it will meet the needs, and then you are able to provide 2 references to support the findings. So where are you finding this information? Where did you research it? Who said what? From which website? From which source? We're now moving on to the C2 4.1 and 4.2. Here it says, within your information booklet, you will need to ensure that the forms of communication are described in relation to the security of data. Ensure you are able to provide guidance on storing the records, accessing the records, sharing the information. Now, again, I have placed the bullet points, for example, security of data, which is policies, procedures, and so on, and sharing of information is clarification on sharing, and so on. Let's look at the support material now. Looking here, you can see that both of them can be completed together. So you will have, for example, 1 individual that looks at the security of data. So, for example, one of these, policy, for example, and then provide an example which is related to healthcare and one that is related to social care. Then looking at 1 aspect of sharing information, which is down here, such as clarification on sharing, and then provide an example that is related to healthcare and social care. And finally, being able to provide references, so where did you find the sources of information to go with that. Now, if each individual provides one of each of these sections as suggested, then you will cover the material that you're supposed to for the criteria of this task. The final criteria to cover, it says, is C3 4.2, which is finally you will need to explain how to maintain those records successfully. So the maintaining of records are, again, the points are here: point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4, point 5, and onwards. Let's take a look at the supporting material. Here you can see, again, it can be divided up for work for 4 individuals, where you are discussing 2 aspects of maintaining records, which are 2 points from here, and then 1 example that is related to healthcare and social care, and then a reference to be able to back that up. Now, if person 1 does 2 of them, so for example, recording information and clarity, person 2 does a further 2, which is factual and sign, person 3 does date, for example, and using agreed formats, and so on, you will be able to have covered everything. Once again, we mustn't forget that each of the pieces of assignments that you're submitting, it is a requirement that you have references. So this is just to make sure that you remember why you're doing that reference checking. Obviously, it develops your personal development and your writing skills and your research skills, but it is also a requirement. So it says show evidence of reading or use of sources with referencing relevant to the explanations. Good use of vocabulary and grammar. Use of referencing should show evidence of reading or use of sources. Vocabulary and grammar should be appropriate and accurate for the purpose. So you need to ensure that you are providing the references as and when they have been suggested within your assignment support pack. So this is how I would like you to have worked on the group information booklet for the criteria suggested. Good luck and all the best.